Hey, how we doing? Late night stream, like I promised. We're gonna be merging code. This is a hardcore dev stream. So if you're not interested in the bits and bytes of game development, this would probably not be a great stream for you. But as I promised before, it was a continuation of the last set. What we did in the last set was we did an AI merge of the 1.97 code base into the 1.98 code base, which is the one on Steam, which brings my source code up to date. And this I'm actually kind of excited about, is that we're going to go from the 1.98 to 1.99, and we're going to roll in all the community updates that have happened in the last 7 or 8 years. So the community has been quietly putting in bug fixes into the code base, and I'm going to use an AI merge to merge those in today. And I have everything in place to do the AI merge. In fact, I should have kicked this off before I started the stream, because it's the AI merge itself or the difference detection takes actually a really long time. So there'll probably be a lot of downtime here to answer questions that you have. This is why programmers are always so good at juggling, because we're always waiting for stuff to finish. So let's get to it. Okay, so I'm back in again. And again, if you're not familiar with this, I guess two things. We're doing the CastleMiner, old CastleMiner Z code base, not the CastleMiner Z Resurrection, the new game we're working on. This is an old update for the Steam game, which I think is probably going to be the last update to it. There is and if you didn't know, you can play the old CastleMiner Z game on Steam. I'm going to crack a Coke because I've been waiting for this for a while now. So to do this, I've been using my own AI merge tool that I wrote just for this purpose. And it's kind of cool. I was showing this to one of the other programmers on the team today. It's kind of cool. I have a really great harness for doing AI calls in C#, where I basically can just take a call, throw in one object, get another one out, and it's like magic. Like, it's just like there's one class in, one class out, and it runs it through the AI, and it works across every single AI provider that there is. So up here, I've chosen Grok 4 for the AI provider, but I'm actually thinking about changing this and doing one AI provider for the difference and one AI provider for the merge. So let me set that up. This is really easy. So this is not the CastleMiner code base. This is mine. So let's call this the merge provider, and let's call this the diff provider. And we will use the merge provider. We'll use Grok 4, and for the diff provider, we'll use GPT-4.1. It's probably a good choice. I'd like to use GPT-5, but they don't have structured output yet, so I can't do that. I'm gonna need the caffeine from the Coke this stream. Yes, I am definitely gonna do this, because although I'm like on a main line of Coke all day long, Coca-Cola, so it would be kind of weird if I just stopped drinking for a while. In fact, I was just out for a couple hours without a Coke, and now I'm coming back and thinking like, yeah, I need a Diet Coke. Let's roll these changes down into here. This is our diff code, so let's use the diff provider here and the merge provider here. Somewhere on my machine, which I'd like to bring up with, I have the code base already reverse compiled. community code base. Ooh. I'm not 100% sure. 199. Okay, yeah, here we go. 199, yeah. So before we were comparing, these are the folders I got here, 197 to 198. And we're going to go, I think I have it as 81 to 199. And still our original code base. I think this is right. I better double check that because this is going to be a really long, expensive merge. I think this is the one I reverse compiled out of what we built. Pretty sure. Okay. I'm actually really excited. This is really geeky. I'm really excited about this because I get to see all the changes that the community have made in detail here, and this is a good way to do this. And we'll kick the diff off here, and the folder does not exist. Oh, come on. Yes, it does. Ooh. Let me make sure that I have all the community stuff in the right place. I'm just reorganizing my computer off screen here. I'm using, actually I probably shouldn't show you all my hacking tools. I think I'm going to keep that to myself. Let me export to project. There's probably going to be a lot of this boring stuff going on. Let me name this something I can remember. Like modded. Mod. And I'm going to use my decompiler, and I'm going to spit that out. And I'm kind of surprised at how this ended up coming out. Like the changes here are significant enough where this actually might be a problem. And I'm trying to understand why the community code base is actually, should have looked at this ahead of time. Why the community code base is so different than mine. This actually may be very problematic. I'm getting a bunch of these handlers. I almost wish that one of the modders, modders aren't in the chat, are they? No, I'm starting to regret doing this live. It's funny. Like, what about this one? It's so interesting that there's these events here. This is going to be really weird. Like, I don't remember what these entity damage event, like it's, like this is stuff that doesn't exist in the original code base. So this is maybe something extra that they put in. Okay, I think this is the folder I need though. So let's just try this first. Go back to our difference tool. And we will set the folder to be this. And in the meantime, I change this to be this. And okay, let's run that and see what we get. And we'll do the diff. Fingers crossed. Looks like it's working. Okay. Just do like a little sanity check here. And I make sure we're using the right. We're using the diff provider for. Okay. How many changes have we seen so far? Oh, there's already one. Wow. Oh, blaster shot. Wow, that is the this is the fix for the laser blaster crash. So I could tell this already. So what is this? That's the thing what the AI says about it is the create methods, first update, true, false. Looks like so they added some logic here to fix the crash. I'm actually curious what this crash is. There was a memory leak that we could never find, and it turns out it has something to do with the lasers, which actually made a lot of sense, but spent a lot of time trying to find. This is weird. This is, for me, this is like history. We spent a lot of time trying to find this memory leak, and we were never able to track it down because when we're looking for a memory leak, we aren't like running around shooting lasers. Like typically you just let the game run for like 3 days and see if it crashes. So we would so we had a error reporting system where we could see the errors that people were getting. And we would see this out of memory crash all the time, but we could never figure out why they were why it was happening. So typically in games you do something that's called a soak test, and I could move away from the screen while we're doing this because let me go to this one. So in video games we typically will do something called a soak test, and usually you do this before you ship a game. And what that is that you usually just like start the game and you just let it run for like 3 days straight. And you see if it crashes, and if it does, you fix the crash, and then you let the game run for another 3 days, and you fix the crash, and you let it run for another 3 days. We used to do this a lot in the days when we were shipping things on consoles. Like, I shipped a lot of games for like the original Xbox One, and the problem with that system was that you once you burned that disc, there was no updating games on the Xbox One. This was true all the way up to like the Xbox 360. Once you burned a game on that disc, they had to have no bugs because you couldn't burn the disc again. And I have a really funny story about that I'll tell about when I was working on WrestleMania 21. We actually had a bug that went onto the disc, and it was a big to do about that. But so we would in those days constantly do soak tests. So back to the CastleMiner Z story, we would do soak tests to find this bug, and we could never find it because you're not doing anything during that time period. But it was people shooting lasers apparently that was probably causing the problem. So it's cool that the community found that. It was like very useful to them. I'm going to answer some questions here, and then I will tell you my story about WrestleMania 21. You have a theoretical question. Assuming that CastleMiner Z came out to the consoles too, would every edition of the game be on the same version? I think Warfare had a problem where they weren't. That's actually a really, really good question. And I don't really have an answer to that because I don't know what the release processes are for all the different consoles. So typically, because we're a small team, we try to keep one code base on everything. Incidentally, big companies like EA do not do this at all for their games. I don't think people realize, when Call of Duty has a single player version and a multiplayer version, there's one team in the UK that makes the whole single player game, and there's another team in California that makes the whole multiplayer games. I don't know if those are the real locations of the company. It's two different companies make two different products, and they're not sharing anything together. So it wouldn't surprise me if they had one team working on the PlayStation version and another team working on the Xbox version, and they were separately. We can't do that as a team. We always make things work based on one code base. This was the reason why we used the XNA version for Steam, and we tried to keep them in sync so that we could share the changes that went between the two products. There's but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I haven't shipped a game on modern consoles, so I don't know what the process for getting an update is to them. I can tell you on Steam, it's really easy. I push a button, it goes up to Steam, and then we release the game. In fact, on when we made Savage Lands, I had a build process that every time anybody did a check-in into the database, it built the whole game on a clean machine and uploaded it onto Steam. So at any given point, we could just pick a build and it would just be live on Steam, and we didn't have to do anything. There was no building, no updating or whatever. Every change that everybody made was live on Steam. It was a really cool process because it made it very, very easy for us to just pick a build. We could test, and if we found a build that was good, it was already on Steam. We just pressed a button and it went live. But anyways, this thing is still, and just flip back over here, this thing is still going. I can count. We can just step in for a second to see how many differences it's made. This is telling me how much work we're going to have to do when this is all over with. So the way this process works is it's going to go through every source file that there is. It's going to look for functional differences between the source file and the new files, and if it finds one, it marks them, and then later on it's going to go back and do a merge. So it found 15 changes already. This all looks like valid stuff, so this seems like it's working. We're just going to let it finish. And I'm going to tell you stories about the video game industry while we're doing this. So here's my story about. I'm trying to think if this is actually an interesting story about WrestleMania 21. So in 2005, I went to work for John Tobias's company. John Tobias was one of the original designers of Mortal Kombat. It was a bunch of the Mortal Kombat guys had started a company making fighting games in Chicago named Studio Gigante. So I worked for him. It was a dream come true. I loved Mortal Kombat. It was one of my favorite games, and to work for the Mortal Kombat guys was like a childhood dream. It was super cool. and they were working on Wrestlemania 21, which was a WrestleMania. I didn't know much about wrestling at the time. The WrestleMania was something that happened every year through the WWE, and they had a game that every year. And the problem with games that have like are based on a movie or an event, those games have to come out before the event. Like you can't miss the event. So the game can't be late and miss the event. So there was a lot of pressure to get this game out, and the company was having a lot of trouble putting the game together, and I was brought in there to help them out, help get this out. And there was just a lot. When I went in there was a lot of fires, a lot of things to fix, and a lot of things to put out. So we were doing that game, and it was taking too long, and that was a big deal because we couldn't slip, and it was like we were pulling all the stops out. We were working 7 days a week. We were, everybody was sleeping at work, and we were doing all these things, and we were putting it all together. And as that was happening, the publisher was getting more and more upset with us. And I don't remember the exact situation, but I remember that we were trying to figure out what the next project was going to be after WWE 21. And we were secretly building these prototypes for different games. And I know one of them was going to be a Kill Bill game. So we were building prototypes for this Kill Bill game. And then John Tobias was flying around meeting with, people like Quentin Tarantino and stuff like that to try to, get a game going. And he had made a bunch of traction on that. I think we were actually going to make a Kill Bill game. At one point, we had an interesting prototype for it. And in the meantime, the publishers were getting angrier and angrier at us. So they were in the building looking over at our shoulders every day. So they were like, literally like walking through the building, looking what everyone was working on. So we were told that if we were working on the Kill Bill game and the publishers walked by, we were supposed to like really quickly turn our computers off so that they wouldn't see it. So we went through all of this stuff. We got our game together, and we published it, and it went out to the store. So remember, this is the time before you could update a game. Like whatever was on the disc is what people got in the store. I mean, it was funny because we were just talking about physical discs in the last stream and why, do we miss physical discs? And after this experience, like I don't miss physical discs at all for this reason. So we at the last second, we got the game together. We pulled all the stops out. Everybody was sleeping at work and doing amazing things, and we put the game together. And we had saved the company. Like, it was such a cool, like, I just thought it was so cool that we saved, the Mortal Kombat guys, like we saved their company. And as soon as the game hit the stores, which was shortly after, because they did a really quick turnaround of the thing, there was reports that there was bugs, and we were shocked by this because we had spent like the last couple months fixing bugs in a game. Like, this is how you do game development. Like, you make a game and everything comes together, and then there's like a horrendous like several month period at the end where all you're doing is playing is fixing bugs in the game, and you're trying to find more and more. So like, you guys think when you get a game and it's like buggy, like a game comes out and it's like, oh, it's buggy, it's like that is nothing compared to what it's like before it goes through that process. Like, there's just bugs everywhere. Like, you're fixing dozens of bugs a day. It's just whatever. Like, what happens usually, if like maybe 1% of those bugs make it out, people get upset. But there was a bug in the final disc, like the disc, like loaded up and crashed or something like that. I think you could probably look this up. And we were like, what happened? Like, what happened? And it turned out that somebody had printed the wrong disc. And to this day, I'm guessing there's probably part of this story that I don't know. But somehow the wrong disc got in the hands of the publisher, and the publisher printed the wrong disc. And it went out, they printed 1 million of them, and it went out and people bought them, and people were like tearing us up in the reviews, and it was a problem because you couldn't update it. So the publisher came back to us and said, fix it. Like, fix it. and it's just crazy. Like this is like crazy. Like what do you want us to do at this point? And the sad thing was, while this was going on, John Tobias lost the publishing deals that he was working with I think it was MTV. There was one for MTV and one for Quentin Tarantino, and like they were kind of like, he was like, this didn't have anything to do with us. This was the publisher, and they're like, we believe you, but we just don't want to work with you now, like given all this stuff. So that was sad. But the publisher came back to us and said, fix it. So we brainstormed and we came up with this crazy way to patch the game using Xbox Live, which was just starting at the time because this was the original Xbox. So there was some crazy thing where we would, you realize we can't change the code on the game that's out there right now. Like we can't build an update system into the thing retroactively. It's like out there already. We can do that, but we found some crazy way to do like a code injection thing or something through Xbox Live and push a live update into the game. It was absolutely amazing, and they fixed the bug. It was one of the crazier things that happened. But the story about the publisher printing the wrong disc is crazy. I have a theory that maybe somebody at the company thought we were going to be late and maybe gave them a disc earlier than we were finished, and it was a way to like appease the publisher or something, but I have no information or knowledge that actually happened. But these days you can just do a patch, so like it's great, compared to the old days when something was burned on a disc or a cartridge or something and it was burned in there forever. People talk about famous bugs like the ones that were in like the E.T. Atari game and things like that just, existed forever, like they were etched in stone. We are still in the middle of this. The cool thing, AI does a lot of cool stuff, but it does not do it fast. Like it is slow, like very, very slow to do things. So it's kind of like giving it to a person that's just like a little bit faster. Let's see how we are here. We have we're working our way through the inventory. That's going to be a long time, and there's already 35 changes. Wow. So last stream when we did the changes, there was only 18 changes, I think, or 20 changes, but we're already at 35 changes, and there's still a lot of files to go. So we're going to let this chew on. The GPT is a lot faster than Grok. Grok seems to be way better at writing code, but it's like 10 to 100 times slower than the than GPT is. Somebody said here publishers are kind of like landlords asking for rent. And the Kill Bill story is really cool trivia. Yeah. The publishers are like landlords asking for rent. I'm not crazy about publishers. I didn't work with any publishers when I was in with Digital DNA Games. I had a chance to work with Warner Brothers at one point, and I eventually they wanted me to make a Lego game for them, and I had pitched an idea for a cool Lego game. I got a meeting with the CEO of Warner Brothers. It was one of the cooler like career things to do, and not like me and a bunch of people or whatever. It was like me and the CEO and his handlers for a couple hours. It was a really cool experience. I flew down to Hollywood and do that. They wanted to have me make a Lego game for them, and I had pitched an idea for a Lego game, which I think was actually a pretty cool idea. But I chose not to work with them in the end. Publishers are kind of like landlords. What happens is there's a bunch of different deals. I don't know if people know how this works or not with publishers, but there's a couple different ways that deals work with publishers. Typically, one of the deals is that the publisher will give you money up front to make the game, and then they take money back from you. So, let's say that the publisher gives you $1 million to make your game. What they'll do is they'll take 100% of the sales until they make their $1 million back, and then they take usually the cut is usually 30-70, so they'll take 30% of the game after that. which kind of sucks because the platform still takes their 30% also. So if you ship a game on the Xbox automatically takes 30% of your game, or Steam is the same way. If you ship a game on Steam, it automatically takes 30% of your revenue. And if you have a publisher, they take the 30% of revenue after the platform does. So once you got the 70% cut, they take 30% of that, and you're left with the rest, and you don't get paid anything until the publisher is paid back in full. So, for example, if they give you $1 million to make, there's a lot of indie publishers. Like if you take $1 million to make an indie game, you're not going to see a dime of that until the publisher gets that $1 million back. So if your game isn't like wildly successful, you're not going to get paid anything for it. You're going to have essentially made the game for free. I've had a hard time understanding what the value of publishers are in this modern day publisherless world. We've chosen to not work with them. In the old days, you needed a publisher. You needed a publisher to get your game into the store, and you needed there was just no way. Like if you were going to be, even in the 360 days, like if you were going to get a game onto the Xbox 360, you needed to have a publisher that would let you get there. It was like gate kept from you. And I really give Microsoft a lot of credit. When they came out with Xbox Live indie games, there was nothing like this. Steam was completely curated. You would have needed a publisher to go through Steam, or you would have needed their permission, which essentially is they're the publisher. Xbox was closed. All the systems were closed off. You couldn't even ship an iPhone game in that time period. Like the iPhone App Store wasn't a thing. And somebody at Microsoft, who actually it was somebody that I worked with in the past, had this idea that people should be able to ship games themselves without a gatekeeper in between you and them. And I remember him, I don't want to name names because I think I probably get some people in trouble, but I remember he was pushing this idea around Microsoft, and he said that, hey, we can make a system where people can publish games, without any, interventions. And everyone was saying that won't work. There'll be all this, crap on there or whatever. But I remember what he told me was that he went to the casual game team at Microsoft. They were protesting it the most. What the team was saying, the casual game team was saying, was that we don't want to compete with indies. And it was ridiculous, right? Like you want to gatekeep this yourself so that you can make your crappy little games and not compete with indie developers on your own system. Like that you don't want to have to make good games. But around that time period, it's hard to remember. It was like around 2008 or so, like Microsoft had started, they had an internal studio that was making casual games on the Xbox, so they're like little arcadey kind of casual games. And what they found is that there was a lot of money in casual games, so they were threatened by this. They thought that, well, if indies show up and start making casual games too, it's going to compete with us, and they didn't want people to compete with them, which I think is sort of the worst excuse ever for not allowing people to make things. There was an interesting time period in 2008, 2009 when we started doing this, is that the game company was going through a bunch of changes. There was a time period where all the companies were kind of coalescing together, and there was less and less games. So it got more and more expensive to make games, and it got riskier and riskier to make games. So what was happening was that you were getting into a world where there was only like 2 or 3 games a year coming out. There was like Call of Duty and Fallout would come out, and Red Dead Redemption. There was like 2 or 3, and then there would be these gaps in between these big games. And what they had inadvertently done is they had created the perfect situation for indies to come about and fill those gaps. So I never felt like I was competing with Call of Duty. I felt like I was the thing that people wanted to play in between Call of Duty and Fallout, because there was these huge gaps where games weren't coming out. Before that time, there was games constantly coming out. Like if you went into the store back in that time period, like early 2000s or so, there was just tons of games. Like every couple weeks a game was coming out. but it became there was just less and less games that were coming out. They were big games and they were cool, but there was just less of them. So they had created the perfect situations for indies to come and fill that gap, which was cool. And the indies, like one of the first ones was Minecraft. Notch had when he sold Minecraft off, had a famous statement where he said, I was sort of the right person at the right time doing the right thing. And I think that was a very modest and fair way to talk about what he had done. That he had, I think his exact words was, I made an indie game in a time period where making indie games was a very possible thing to do. And then I was in that time period too, so that I got to be a part of that. It was sort of like the indie heyday, and that was really great. A couple of questions in the stream. I'm still waiting. I haven't given up on this. This is what being a programmer is like. Like usually I would kick this off and I would go like run or go to the gym or something like this and wait for it to come back because it's still processing hundreds of files. The good thing is it saves this data away and only does this once, unless it's done. No, it's not. So we're just like sitting here talking while we're waiting for the AI to do this merge for me, which is better than me sitting here all night and doing the merge, to be honest. Let me go through some of the things in reverse order. How many people are on our team? There's 4 of us right now. Do you plan to make a remake for CastleMiner and CastleMiner Warfare? Probably not. I think if we were going to do that, we'd probably roll that stuff into this product. CastleMiner Warfare was interesting. We were all excited about CastleMiner Warfare. We thought it was like the absolute right thing to do at the right time. We all loved it when we played it. And it didn't do well. Like almost nobody played CastleMiner Warfare. And it was interesting because it was in the era like right before like Fortnite. And Murder Miners had come out on the Xbox, and like we had actually delayed. CastleMiner Warfare was done for a long time. Maybe that was a mistake of mine. CastleMiner Warfare was done. We had it like ready to go, where I just had to push the button on the Xbox, and I waited a long time for that for some strategic reasons. In the meantime, Murder Miners came out. Murder Miners did really good, but nobody wanted to play CastleMiner Warfare. It didn't do good on the Xbox, and then we shipped it on the PC, and it didn't do good on the PC. So we never understood why that was, because it seemed like we had, if I look at back in history, it was the right product. Like everybody was making, this is the Fortnite era, like everybody was making similar games to that. And we had kind of done it before everybody else, and when it came together, we thought it would be really cool, and like people just were not interested in it. So a lot of times it has to do with delivery. Like maybe there was something wrong with the delivery. The box cover for CastleMiner Warfare, I should pull it up, was done by actually a very famous artist. It was like everything felt like we were doing it the right way. See if I can pull up an image. Oh, it's on IMDb. That's crazy. Oh, it's not the full box. Let me see if I can find the. I'm surprised that. So this was the CastleMiner Warfare box. I thought it was one of the better box covers that we had. I thought the branding was great. This box was actually made by, I think the guy was an artist for, I hope I'm not getting it wrong, but I think it was Magic the Gathering. He would do the cards for Magic the Gathering was the guy who did this box. And we went through this iterative process. And when it came together, I was just like so happy about how the thing came together. And yeah, nobody wanted this game. So like it's one of there's this rule of tens, where you make 10 things and one thing takes off, and you can't predict when that thing is going to take off or not. So this was a bad call of mine. But I can't, like, I look at it and I'm happy with the whole thing. It went together. Death Toll was another one. Death Toll is actually, we did a stream on it recently. It was a fun game. Nobody wanted to play it. which sucks. But like it's like you can't beat a dead horse, right? You can't just keep working on something that nobody wants, nobody's interested in. When's the remake supposed to come out? It's supposed to come out at the end of this year, hopefully. I mean, things have been going kind of slow, so it's kind of ready when it's ready. But that's the plan. Like that's the that's the target. The end of this year. This is interesting. What somebody said here. Somebody said that AAA games versus indie markets seem very similar to modern indie movies versus big budget movies. 100% true. Everything that has to do with the publishers and the way that the markets and marketing works, it's almost the exact same thing. One of my big aspirations is I would love to make indie movies. That's like a dream of mine to make indie movies, and like I've actually talked about it with the company guys for a while, and we talked about how you would make a movie as an indie that would actually sell. And there's a bunch of I'm a fan of indie anything. Like I play indie video games, I love indie movies, but it's but yeah, it is very, very similar, very, very, very similar. And at some point you don't want to compromise your art, so you never want to have a publisher telling you, like the publisher gives you money. That's the nightmare scenario. The publisher gives you money, and then they're like, well, you need bunny rabbits there instead of like whatever. So it's you don't want that. Somebody's saying a death toll game mode for CMZR. Yeah, that would be fun. I think we would need to add a lot to CastleMiner to make it death toll. I don't know if you guys ever played Death Toll. You should. It's free. You should go play it on Steam. It's a pretty good game. Like when we played it back in the stream a couple days ago, I was like, man, this was cool. I mean, it's like kind of unpolished, which I think is one of the reasons why it didn't do good. But it's a fun game, and it's kind of unique. Like there's a mechanic in there that I haven't seen anywhere else. Somebody's asking if this is coming to Xbox. Microsoft needs to approve us. We have to go through a process on that. We haven't gone through the process yet. I had CastleMiner Warfare, thought it was great, but you missed the open world environments of CMZ. Yeah, I could see that. Because the world, one of the things that we did in CastleMiner Warfare was we just made it a 1K by 1K world, which is what Minecraft did on the Xbox, which I think is kind of funny. Like Minecraft on the Xbox was 1K by 1K worlds. And we were like, let's just constrain this to 1K worlds, and we'll make it. It's so easy. Like it removed like 90% of the complexity in our code to just constrain things to this 1K thing. And we kind of we wanted maps where people were kind of forced together, like Call of Duty size maps. And then we designed the maps by hand. Like we went and handmade all the maps, and but people weren't interested in this. People are saying to change the color of the UI. The UI is stand-in. We haven't made the UI yet. Somebody's asking here, how does Microsoft do Infinite Worlds on the console? Is it network-based? Probably not. We had Infinite Worlds on the console. So on the Xbox 360, there was you were limited as an indie to what you could do there, so it made things more difficult for us. But we were able to make Infinite Worlds on the Xbox 360, and then when Minecraft came out, it had very small limited worlds compared to us, and I was kind of proud of that because I thought it was kind of cool that like us as a little team could solve this problem where like a big company on a really great published title like couldn't do it. I'm sure they probably did it eventually, but the way that it's done is through Perlin noise. So I'm trying to understand, like it's a noise, the worlds are generated through a noise function. The way it works a little different in CastleMiner Z than it does it works a little different than it does in CastleMiner Z than it does in Minecraft. In CastleMiner Z, the whole world is a noise function, which is sort of like, here, let me see if I can pull up, I think I can pull up some paint and make you understand how this works. We're still waiting for the thing. So let's imagine I have some mathematical function. Let's say it's this is it. And what we get is, from this would be a sine wave. I should get my paint skills better. Let's get a thicker brush. How do you do this? Oh, we just right here. Let's say this function generates a sine wave like this. And what we can do here is, if there was sort of like a window that we were in, like this, what you could do is you could take and generate terrain geometry based on, what that sine function is. But you only generate it inside of the window that you're looking at. You don't have to generate the whole thing. You just generate the part that you're looking at. This is basically how all of these games work. And the difference is that this function up here is complicated, like very, very, very complicated. It's so complicated that it builds a whole world for us. So right now, like in CastleMiner Z, there is a mathematical function that builds the entire world, believe it or not. And what you can do is go to it's in 3D instead of 2D here, and you can build a cube around any area of the world and build, the world. So any X, Y, Z coordinate, I can know exactly what block is supposed to go there with this mathematical function. I just put in X, Y, and Z, and it tells me like grass or dirt and whatever, and you just scan over and you build the world in that way. So what Minecraft does is that this is the box that you're looking at, and it generates this function and it saves it away to the disk, and the next time you come back here it just loads it back in. What our game did was it never drew the line. And some people like this and some people didn't do this. So you have to imagine, like, our game just never drew what it did was it just computed what was inside the box with the mathematical function. And if you change something, like you went in here and you erased a spot and you made it like something else, we would only save the blocks that you changed off to the disk. So if you went into a world and you walked around and you walked forever in every direction, there would be 0 data saved to your disk. If you changed 3 blocks in the world, that's all we would save, is those 3 blocks, but we would still have the mathematical function that computed everything. And for that reason, our worlds were very, very small on disk. Like, your creations were probably only like 10,000 bytes or something like that, and we had megabytes. And this is the reason why CastleMiner Z on the Xbox could save every world that you ever was in, because it was so little data to save those worlds. So I thought that was a cool feature. The original CastleMiner did that too, is we just saved every world. Like, if you ever went into a world, we just saved the world onto your disk. Do I stream on Twitch? Yes, we're streaming on Twitch right now, supposedly. Do you think the game will be out before next year? I don't want to make any promises. The noise function is like a pattern. Yes, the noise function is a pattern. Like, so instead of this function being like this, like say I wanted mountains, I could make a function that looked like this instead. And what you do is you blend these functions. So like what I could do is say, like, here's my mountain function, and here is a let's say that this is my function for like valleys or something like that. And then what I could do is kind of like blend these together so I could get like mountains and little valleys. This is how the biomes are made, and more mountains, and then maybe some more valleys and whatever. But this is still just a mathematical function. I'm just blending these mathematical functions. And there is one piece of code in CastleMiner Z that just generates the entire world. Like it's the world building function. I can actually show it to you if you'd like. In the Codebase, there is a world. Where is it? It's in World Terrain, World Builder. Yeah. And basically, we've broken all the biomes into separate pieces of math, but they're all like blended together by the same math function. So like here's the descent, Orland. Like this is the function for Orland, and this is it. Like this is just a little piece of code. This little piece of code here generates all of Orland for us. The desert, here's the desert. This is it. This is this little piece of code right here. It's a little mathematical function that generates the whole desert. And then there's one that pulls everything together. And so we don't save the data out. We just let this thing compute itself each time you go to the place, and there's nothing to save there. So you don't need any networking or large computers or a lot of memory. All you have to do is have this function work out. I'm so backed up on the questions. Let me try to hit them here. Let me make sure that my merge isn't done yet. Oh, it is. Okay, let's okay, let me go through the questions fast and we'll get back to the merge. Will Resurrection be available on next gen? Yes, that is the whole plan. That's why we're doing this. How did Lantern Land play into the open world? Was the rest of the map just lanterns? No, it actually stopped. If you went out another 40,000, it would stop. And that was completely created. There's a bug flying around here. There was a bug. I was just going to say that was completely made by a bug. That's so weird that just happened. There was a very, very interesting bug that caused Lantern Land. And I've been trying to make a video on just specifically why Lantern Land happened, because it's the weirdest bug that I've ever encountered in my whole career making games. And it's the fact that there was this bug, like most bugs just make things crash. But this bug made this cool land formation that looked like it was, intended to be there out at 40,000 blocks. And then it went away after another 40,000 blocks. And the weird thing to me was that the part of it that's so strange is that at that time period, Game of Thrones was very, very popular. And if you're not familiar with Game of Thrones, there's a giant wall that sits in the middle of like a cold place. And the wall just happened to form in the mountains where it's like snow-capped mountains. And there's this big wall there. And you have to believe that like we had never seen this until other people saw it. So it was the weirdest thing ever, because we were seeing people having this report of Lantern Land, and we were like, no way that would, like, first of all, the idea that a bug would make something real instead of just crashing or screwing things up. And the fact that it did it in this one place that made it look appropriate. Like if you've never seen it, it was like a wall of bedrock with lanterns on the top. And we went out there and we were like, oh my God, it's real. Like this is like, how did this happen? And then the bug comes down to one line of code. I could show you the line of code that generates Lantern Land. What would happen is that it was in the tower, the origin biome. Yeah, here it is. So this is it right here. This line of code right here created Lantern Land. So what happened here was that there's a biome for every different place, and there's a specific biome, because it was the easy way to do it, for the tower in the center of the game, which was in the 000, the origin. There was a tall column of bedrock that went as high as you could possibly go, just enough to stand on top, and a lantern on top of that. It's the center of the tower. So what would happen here is, what this code does here is it looks at the distance away from the origin that you are, and if you're close enough, every little bit of distance, it puts the tower and reduces the height of it, and it does this up for 4 blocks here. So for 4 blocks a distance from the tower, it makes, it makes them go a little bit lower. But if it's at 0, 0, 0, it gives you a tower of bedrock with a lantern on top. And what happens here, and this is a common bug in programming, is that these numbers are bigger than what an integer can support here. So if these numbers, once they go over 40,000, go over the limit of what could go into this number. And when that happens, the number rolls around to negative. So it's sort of like if you only, it's like, I'm trying to think of a way to explain this. You have, if you have a bunch of number, like if you have a, I'm trying to think of a good way to explain this. It's like you only have so high of a number that you can put in a slot, and if you go over that number, something unpredictable happens. And usually what happens is that it flips to a negative number, and then when it comes back up again, it comes back to 0. So at 40,000 blocks, this went over that number and went negative. And once it went negative, it satisfied all this logic and drew only what was at 0, 0, 0 in the world, and that happened to be the center of the tower. So if anything else was there, it would have replicated that out in Lantern Land, but it replicated this one thing that happened to be in the center of the tower. And the other thing that was so coincidental about that was the fact that the tower was like the branding for the game. So the idea that this bug created this thing that was like, like that was an important part of the branding was such an interesting thing to me. So it's really, really cool that that happened. It's like one of the coolest bugs that I ever did. So we left it in. We never fixed it. So there's some questions about what I'm talking about. I'm more than happy to answer these questions because I think what I'm doing here was a little bit boring. Somebody asked, how do infinite worlds not take up infinite storage? This is a really easy question to answer. So for example, a sine wave goes infinitely in all directions. But this is all you need to generate that wave. Like, you don't need to know what a sine wave looks like, way, way, way down the timeline or way before you. You can predict what it's going to look like. So the reason it doesn't take infinite storage is because this is the only thing that you can have to save to generate a sine wave that would go infinitely in both directions. So you can imagine if instead of a sine wave, it was a very, very complicated math function, one that generated mountains and valleys and deserts and whatever, that doesn't take any memory. In fact, this is it. Like for example, let's pick a biome. This is the origin biome. This one's actually more not the origin biome. It's the desert is a good example of this. Let's go back to the desert. The desert, this function right here is the equivalent of like sine of x or whatever. This creates the desert. Like, I don't need to save. This is all I need to save. It's in the game already. I don't need to save anything else, and I get deserts forever in every direction. And all I have to do is blend that desert with a mountain function. In fact, here's the mountain biome. A little bit more complicated, but I can just blend that with mountains and get the same thing. So the reason why it doesn't take infinite memory is that it's a math function, and it's not something that you author. And all we ever do is save the difference between this and what you did. So once you change blocks, we only save the blocks that you change. How many blocks would it take to fill up 1 megabyte? That's a really good question. I don't remember how we saved our blocks exactly, but they were probably just like one, I don't know. I think it probably 8 or 9 bytes per block would be my guess. 4, 12, 13 or 14 blocks per, well, let's calculate it. I think it was probably 14 bytes per block. So like 1 million bytes divided by 14 is 71,000 blocks, over 72,000 blocks. So think about the time that it takes for you to chisel a block, maybe like 1, 2, maybe let's say 2 seconds on average. So if I multiply that by 2, That's 142,000 seconds. We do this a lot in game development and programming. One of the tests that they give programmers is to back of the envelope things like this, to say like, how much data would this take, or what's the maximum capability of this, or whatever, and you get really good in your head about doing these extreme calculations to be like, in this case, this would be this, and like really fast you could be like, oh, it'll take 1,000 years to calculate that, let's not do that. This is a very common talent of computer scientists. So 142,000 seconds, let's divide that into 60. This is minutes, 2,000 minutes divided by 60. So for example, that's 40 hours of play. Of 40 hours of just breaking blocks straight, it would take you to fill up 1 megabyte of the thing. So we had, I think, 10 megabytes or something on the Xbox. So if you multiply that by 10, this is like 369 hours divided by 24. That's like 16 days straight of breaking blocks. It's unlikely that somebody would do that. So people are asking about the Xbox avatars. We cannot bring the Xbox avatars back. I'm getting way backed up on questions. Where can I sign up to be a play tester? Let me give you the link right here. Because it'd probably be good to put this in the stream. On the stream, definitely wishlist the game if you haven't done that already. Oh, thank you so much for the donations. I'm so backed up on the stream here that I didn't see the donations. Thank you very much. Do we plan to add more weapons to the game? Yes, we do. This is somebody called it an underflow error. Yes. Yeah, I think that's true. I should probably look that up specifically. But an overflow error. We're using signed bits. You have to be a little bit familiar with how programming was. Somebody's saying here the equation takes up more space than the actual assets of the game. The equation takes up virtually no space at all. It's just like this. Like the equation is sine of x. That doesn't take, like that's. I mean, this actually is only like one computer operation. There was an optimized storage option. That's right. There was an optimized storage option. And I don't remember what it did. It cleaned up something. The problem was the Xbox would get slower as there was a lot of files in the system, and you know what? I got the code in front of me. Like let's find out. I don't remember. I remember writing it, and I don't remember what problem we were solving. So this is cool. I get to revisit my old stuff. Before we do this, I want to just check on the merge here. I just want to see. I should probably almost kick this off because this actually takes a really long time. Let's just click on merge. I just want to see how many differences that we ended up with. So there was a lot, 83 differences in the game. I'm going to kick this off because this merge is actually going to take a really long time. So, and I'm kind of curious what the AI does with this in the end. So that's kicking off Grok, and we're going to start seeing, as that comes in, we're going to start seeing files changing up in here, and we can look at the difference of the files change. And then I go through a hand process of merging these afterwards to double check everything. And for that's going to be the exciting part for me because I'm going to get to see all the work that the community did. In the meantime, oh yeah, we were looking up optimized storage. I think this is a really great question. It's cool that you remember that. Let me find this. Find in files. Oh, here it is. Good old optimized storage. code. I think it got rid of, well, here it is. So we would get all the worlds. We would walk through all the worlds. Oh, and if you're not the owner of the world, oh, this is really interesting. Okay, so what would happen here is there was a count of corrupt worlds that you didn't own that were somehow didn't save properly on the machine, and they would build up as extra files, and we would wipe those off the machine. I'm kind of curious about how we found the corrupt worlds. Like this I actually don't remember. So we would go to your save device, we would load all the worlds, and we would load, okay, so here what would happen is we would load a world from storage, and if it failed for some reason, we would add it to a list of corrupt worlds. The reason why we did this is because saving and loading on the Xbox was, I think, very slow. So if we would have just done this to you at any other point without electing it, it would have made the game freeze for you. And I think there was lots of scenarios where your game world could be corrupt. Like if you were saving something and you turned off your Xbox, or you got disconnected or something, it would corrupt. So we would keep a list of these corrupt worlds, and then when you hit optimize storage, we would get rid of them. So that was what that did. And hopefully this didn't, like it was like an option, because I remember this now, people were telling us that the game was getting slower and slower. We were trying to figure out why, and this was one of the things we thought was going on, so we gave people the option to clean up their storage. And if we ran into problems, I think we popped it up, which I think is a person telling you. Will you be looking into adding Steam Workshop support? Yes. What is the planned release date? It's the end of the year. Will there be achievements? Yes. There's a small part. Will there be a small amount of character customization? I don't know what we're doing with the character customization yet, but I know that we're punting that till after we release. How many ores are there going to be? I'm not sure that we're adding any ores to the game, but there's still a lot to go. Yeah, this is somebody saying this is way simpler than they thought it was. Yeah, it was not. We were not solving a complicated problem by doing that. Like we weren't like shuffling the saves around or whatever. We were just getting rid of bad data and I think it really made a difference on the Xbox, because there was something about the way that storage worked on the Xbox that made it slow if there was lots of files. So let's see if we've merged any files at this point. I'm kind of interested. It's interesting that it hasn't done it. Grok is so slow. So it went through, I think, like 400 files there when it did the merge, and now Grok is like each file one by one. And it looks like it merged the first one, and it's about to write this out to disk. So what's the? This is exciting for me. This is like Christmas morning or something, because I get to see. Well, maybe not that exciting. Christmas is pretty rad. Blaster shot. This is pretty exciting, because this is the laser bug, and I get to see where I screwed this up. So when I'm pretty sure I wrote this code, so I get to see where I screwed this up. So let's see what they did here. So they removed a bunch of strings here which maybe weren't used. Added this logic has just moved from one place to another, which I don't really like. I'm starting to not like the way that Grok is shuffling my code around, because it's instructed to change it as least as possible. First update, no collider frame. So there's a significant change to my logic here. This is a taking out dead stripping code that never was called. That's totally fair. This code looks like it's changed dramatically. This stuff is dead stripped. And this looks like this was just moved from here to here. This is key. No, that was just moved from there to there. It is not obvious to me why this would fix the laser stuff. Unless that happens later on. Because this all just looks like code that I did, which is shuffling around, which kind of bothers me a little bit because I'm asking the AI not to do this, so it's making me think that Grok is not as good at doing this as GPT is, which makes me wonder if I should just switch this back to GPT to do this merge, because the other merge actually worked pretty good. Let me see what this is. A new one that came in is a greater than instead of tool. That's interesting. Oh, this is this thing where they added the color to all the tools. I was told about this. So, and it's setting the diffuse color. So that's a really good valid change there, because there was something about the tools not taking the right colors, and that's a totally valid thing for them to fix. So cool, it's doing what it's supposed to be doing. Is the game going to be on Xbox Game Pass? Man, I don't know. We're still too early to know this. And how big is the game going to be storage-wise? We have no idea, because we haven't made it yet. Like, most of the stuff that would go in the game hasn't been made. It's interesting. Somebody's asking here is why the seeds weren't made public. I guess that felt like it was too programmery to like expose to users. We gave you a random world and we let you give that world to other people. The idea of like, I guess I don't remember if we did that way. Like a reset world would have made sense. It would seem weird to me that like people would want to actually know what the seeds were to the world. But I never really thought of it like that when we built the system. Somebody was saying that laser bullets got added to a list and then wouldn't be deleted from the list. That probably is true. I think that this is probably this is fixing. It's cool that the community fixed this stuff, because this is definitely stuff that we missed. It's interesting that this stuff has been taken out. Like these flags were just straight up removed. And these checks were removed, which is interesting. For the tracer manager, which oh, I get what's happening. Or we used pooling. And it looks like maybe the pooling was removed. I don't know. I don't want to say anything specifically till I really understand what happened. one of the most important things about games in C#, especially in the Xbox, well, in almost all games, is you can't allocate memory on a per frame basis. So you do a lot of crazy stuff to remove memory allocations. Otherwise, you get stutters. So you pool things a lot, where you put things like you'll make bullets that are shooting, and then you put them into a list, and you put them out on the list. And it's possible that that list got too big, but it'd be interesting to see what happens there eventually. Will there be food and water stats? Probably not. Somebody said, "You're so rad for doing this game." Thank you. I appreciate that. I really appreciate that. I mean, this is the reason we do it. We do it for you. I really should go. I mean, we're streaming on TikTok too. I should really go over and see if TikTok has any questions too. I have to look at the TikTok stuff in a separate window, which makes this difficult. Oh, here we got lots of questions already. I am coding CastleMiner Z is what I'm coding. I am the creator of CastleMiner Z, and we are redoing it. But right now, and specifically, we are. I'm doing an update to the original CastleMiner Z on Steam. I'm using AI to do a giant code merge from the modding community. So that's what I'm working on. So in the meantime, while I'm waiting for the AI to merge code for me, I'm answering random questions about life, love, and the universe. Is CastleMiner Z coming back to Xbox? Hopefully. It's definitely coming back to Steam. If Microsoft lets us, it'll come back to the Xbox. Somebody's saying that Total Miner has been in update limo for so long, he lost faith. He's a good guy. I've met him in person. I liked him. Craig something. I met him. He's from New Zealand. I was really excited when I finally got to meet him. He's a cool guy. So and very passionate about his project. So I'm wondering what's actually going on there. I haven't reached out to him in a long time. I did some cross promotions with him for a while. Thomas, you're the GOAT. Thank you. Somebody's saying do the expect when can we wait for the plan is at the end of the year. Wishlist the game. I'm just going to throw it out there while we're waiting. CastleMinerZ.com. Oops. Here, CastleMinerZ.com. Wishlist the game. Be great to do that. Is it free to play? Nope, it is not. This is somebody from the community asking me if they want one of my DLLs. I'm hoping to just roll your fixes in. I'm not sure what fix that you need with the Steam DLL. How much is the game on the Steam? Game is not on Steam. It's not for sale yet. We're still making it. The original game I think is $6 on Steam. Steam wishlist. You can go to Steam and add it to your wish list. Add it to your wish list. Somebody said here, this is funny, this is like we're going to the spoiler world. Has giant spider mobs been considered? Yes, we've had lots and lots of talk about giant spider mobs so far. But I don't want to give anything away, and I don't want to talk about things that haven't been made yet. Like, I only talk about things when they're actually real, not hypothetical things that we might do. I could try to only talk about things that are actually planned that we have to do. By the way, too, you could sign up. Somebody just said this. You could sign up for the beta. We give these out. We've done a lot. We do betas for all our games. If you want to, you can sign up for the beta. And if we get picked, you get early access to the game, which is always fun. But And thank you for the diamonds here. I don't really understand the TikTok stuff enough to understand where these diamonds are coming from. Like when I was making Jello on TikTok, I wasn't doing it live, so I didn't really experience this. But I appreciate the gifts that people are giving me. Any donations you make here helps out tremendously with the game because we're all making this for free essentially. Will everyone? This is important. Will everybody who signs up for the beta be guaranteed? No. It will only be a select. It won't be a few. Like we usually give out lots and lots of betas. People that are involved with the community or donations sort of take precedence, and then we do things in order after that. So the earlier you sign up, the better. But no, there is no guarantee that if you sign up that you will end up in the beta. Do I know the time frame for the beta to be released? No. If it was out, believe me, if it was out, I would have done it already. What are we? Let's see if we got. There's more. This is fun. Like this is like for. It's probably less fun for you, but much more for me. It's like the code reveal. Like what has the community done? And the files are coming out one by one. So let's check out the next one. We have the controller mapping. And it looks like, wow, that code was removed from the sprint code, and it looks like there is a text chat was unbound. Interesting. Like text chat was bound to key mouse 1 and unbound. So I wonder what that was about. I would love to read through. If somebody in the community has this, I would love to read through the change list. This is sort of like, people finding my bugs is like kind of like the coolest thing ever because it's like the mistakes that you made. Oh, wow. Donations. Thank you so much. Shiba dog shaking body from left to right, surrounded by hearts. Love it. Thank you. Is your famous Jello going to be in the game? Geez, that would be... a good Easter egg. That would be a good Easter egg. Custom death animations for mobs. Yeah, we probably would have something like that. I just got a Magica Voxel build idea. Yeah, I'm thinking there's going to be a Jello Magica Voxel. So I think that's cool. What inspired the game in the first place? This is a really good story, and it's probably not what you think. Obviously, Minecraft was an influence. Like, it would be disingenuous for me to say that. But there was I'm going to flip away here for a second because this is a little bit boring. So let's rewind back to 2008. So I was working in a little startup, and I was doing indie games on the side. So the first couple of games I made were like Avatar. Let me tell the whole story. This is actually, we're going to back up. So it was in 2008, and I was running a startup, and a friend of mine came over to my house who was working with me in the startup. Very, very good game designer. And he said, oh my God, look at what they're doing on the Xbox. And we turned on the Xbox. I remember it was in my living room. And he said, you can put any game you want on the Xbox. This is so bizarre. And you have to realize that in this time period, there was nothing like this before. If you wanted to put a game anywhere, you needed a publisher and like millions of dollars to do it. And my friend was like, look, you can just make a game and put it on the Xbox. And I was shocked by this. I was like, this is ridiculous. Like, no way that you can do this. He's like, well, this is so crazy. You can just put a game on the Xbox. So I wanted to try this out. So I needed to buy like a second monitor or a TV or something for my Xbox to do this, and I thought, you know what, I'll make a little game. It was Avatar Avenue. Let's go down memory road and do the whole thing. And this was the first thing I made. So what I immediately thought about doing was I was watching the Xbox version of 1 versus 100 on the Xbox, and at that time period, Call of Duty was had just come out and was the best-selling game ever. And I thought, man, people really love the Xbox avatars. I should make a first-person shooter like Call of Duty with the Xbox avatars. People love Call of Duty. They love their avatars. They would love to, put these things together. So this was my goal right out of the gate, was to make this. But I was looking at the other games on the Xbox system, and they were so much... they were so simple compared to doing that, and I didn't know that I could make that. I knew it would take a long time to make that game, and I was anxious to publish something. So I took this in steps, and the first thing that I did was I figured out I needed to get avatars on the screen, and I needed to pay for this little monitor that I needed. So I thought maybe if I make a little simple avatar game, because again, I can put anything I want on the Xbox, that this little game will give me the $300 or whatever I needed for this extra monitor. So in one night, I made Avatar Avenue. And Avatar Avenue was a little game where the avatars cross the street. And Avatar Avenue shot to the front of the Xbox Live indie game thing. And I think it made $30,000 initially or something, which way overshot the money that I needed to buy this monitor. And I was hooked after that because I just thought oh, this is the coolest thing ever. And my plan is that I would build all the little pieces of my game engine and I would make games with them and make money all along the way up until the point where I shipped my final big game. And by that point, I would have made a bunch of money and there wasn't a bunch of risk involved in making the final game. What I didn't realize what I was doing was I had stumbled across something that was a very important concept, which is the idea that you learn a lot from shipping things. You learn a lot from getting things done and putting them in the public. You don't learn a lot from sitting around and thinking or doing things. You learn by actually doing things. And I tell this story over and over and over again about the pottery, is that there was a study done where two groups of people made pottery, and one group was told to make the best pot that they possibly can, and the other group of people were told make as many pots as you possibly can. And at the end of the whole study, the people who made as many pots as they can made a better pot than the first group. And the reason is because you learn by experience. So it was something I stumbled on accident, that if I kept making these little games one after another, I would end up making something good. And I had learned so much about shipping games. One of the things I learned about is how to make good box covers. I learned about what people were interested in, what they weren't interested in, and I made more and more of these small games. So this was fun, and every one of these games made thousands of dollars, which was more than I was making at my day job, which was super cool. So I kept doing it. And finally, the product that I ended up with was Avatar Paintball. That was the first person shooter. Let me see if I can find an image. So that was, this is so small. Avatar Paintball. Let me see, I wonder if I could find a better cover of my box somewhere else. Here's a Kotaku article about Avatar Paintball here. Yeah. So Avatar Paintball was a first-person shooter with avatars, and I was totally right. When it came out, it did great. And I think Avatar Paintball initially made hundreds of thousands of dollars instead of thousands of dollars. And it was a game I had made completely by myself. I had done the music for it. I bought this environment, but I dressed it up and lit it and did all these cool things, and it worked. This philosophy of making little games and building up to a big game worked really well. So around that time period, I think Avatar Laser Wars then came after that, and that was a skin of this. So around that time period, I think I lost my job, and I went for an interview at Microsoft again. And during that time period, I talked to one of the executives at Microsoft that were involved in Xbox Live indie games. And he told me something that really surprised me. What he said to me was that we like the Xbox indie games. Like, we're aware of you and we like the Xbox indie games because we want people sitting in front of the Xbox spending money all the time. Like, we want their time to be spent in front of the Xbox spending money. So indie games are great because people buy them for $1, they play them for a few minutes, and they go and they buy something else. And there's basically like these leftover Microsoft points that they suck up. And I remember coming back to my friends and saying, like, God, you know what their nightmare would be is if somebody made Minecraft on the Xbox and then they played it forever. This would be like their nightmare. You could like make it because Minecraft had just come out and we were all playing it, and it's like a little indie game that if you put it on the Xbox, people would just play it like crazy, and they would not do it. And I remember literally saying to my friends, and I kind of kicked myself afterwards, is saying that the day that somebody goes and makes Minecraft and puts it on Xbox Live indie games, it's going to be like game over. This is going to be the last thing that they that they're ever gonna, this is gonna upset them. And I don't know why I didn't go and like immediately pivot. I was working on like Avatar Laser Wars or something at the time, and I didn't want to just like throw it out and go work on something else at that time period. At the same time, I was playing Minecraft, and I think that was probably the last time where I was playing Minecraft myself. And Minecraft was obviously a really, really cool game. I do want to say, though, Minecraft was a derivative game. Minecraft was, I don't know if everybody knows this story, but Minecraft was based on the Infiniminer Codebase. Infiniminer was a guy here in Seattle, met him at one point, that made an XNA game, and XNA was the tools that we use on the Xbox, block game, and Notch actually reverse engineered like that code and changed the game. And that was an interesting story to me too, because the Infiniminer guy didn't really embrace what the community wanted. The community kind of like took his code and reverse engineered it, and Marcus Pearson took the code from Infiniminer, added crafting and a different world generator, and it became Minecraft. It was completely a derivative product. So I was playing Minecraft at the time period, and I kind of lost interest in it because the idea of just sitting around building things wasn't that interesting to me, but I kind of liked the idea of exploring and fighting the enemies. And at the same time period, I was playing Call of Duty Nazi Zombies. And I thought like this idea of like a arcadey kind of zombie attack thing would be cool inside of a Minecraft environment. And that was sort of like the beginning thought process for CastleMiner Z. But what ended up happening to me was that I was working on, and this is one of the things that could kick me. Oh, the next thing that happened on the Xbox is somebody made Minecraft on the Xbox. It was Fortress Craft. And Fortress Craft took off, went to the top of all the Xbox sales on the entire system, not just the indie ones, but the top of everything. Like beat Call of Duty and everything, and was the best-selling game at that point on the Xbox Live arcade game. And then I was really kicking myself because I was like, man, I thought about this and I didn't do it, right? Like I thought about it and I didn't go and like immediately go and do it. And in that time period, I was working on Avatar Superstar, which was cute. But I didn't make much money. This was, man, all of these are like so small. I was working on Avatar Superstar, which is the game that almost killed CastleMiner. So I was working on this, and John came to me, and John was having trouble at his day job, and he said, I need a project to work on. And I said to him, go back home and make me a block engine, like a voxel engine, and we'll put it on the Xbox, and it'll make like a ton of money. I think I told him an amount of money, and he didn't believe me. He said, I don't think this is going to work. I said, believe me, it's going to work. And supposedly, I don't remember having this conversation with him, but it sounds like something I would say, is I told him, if it doesn't work, I'll give you $20,000, and we'll just call it a day. So he went... home, and within like a month he had a voxel engine. This is the same John that's running building our voxel engine right now for the game. And he built it in like a month, and we put it together, and we threw CastleMiner out, and CastleMiner did really, really good. I don't think we beat FortressCraft in those days. FortressCraft had already had like a head start on us. And it came out, and then Total Miner came out shortly in that same time period. And when that came out, I remember John came back to me, and we were really excited because it had made more money than anything else did, even though it wasn't the top game there. And John said, "What do we do now?" And I said, "We add zombies," and that's where CastleMiner Z came from. And it was I have this belief that CastleMiner Z is the first open world zombie survival horror game. Period. So we went and we did a 6-week reskin of CastleMiner, put CastleMiner Z out, and this is where like the whole COD zombies thing came to me, where I was playing that at the time period, and I thought, man, it would really be cool to have this like arcadey Call of Duty, like felt like Call of Duty zombies, but inside a voxel world. We'll concentrate on building things or killing things instead of building things. And then the other thing we had is the infinite worlds from CastleMiner, and the other games didn't have this. So it was like, well, what can we do in our game that could take advantage of the infinite worlds where the other games aren't doing this? And my thought was like endurance mode, like let's give you some reason to move away from the beginning of the game and fight things as you're moving instead of like staying in one place and like building a base. And what I didn't like about Minecraft was that you could always be very, very safe. Like you could just build a little wall with a thing in front of you and the zombies couldn't get in and you were totally safe. So what I thought about is like, well, we worked a lot of this, like how do we make the zombies actually like really threatening in the game, and how do we make the weapons like feel cool to you so that it feels like a cool experience to fight zombies. And I always said it was like Navy SEALs against zombies or Navy SEALs against dragons. Is that like, like you're with your squad and you push out a little bit and then you fight and you push out a little bit and you fight, and then it gets dark and you go underground and you mine your bullets, and then you come back up on top and you push out a little bit and you fight and you push out a little bit and you fight. And it encourages you to leave the area that you're in and explore the infinite world instead of staying in one place. Because when I played Minecraft, what I found myself doing was like building a house. It was an infinite world, but all I ever did was like build a house in the starting point and explore some caves. And I would never walk out to places, and it was like a novelty. Like I could walk out far away and come back, but why would I ever do this? So we were trying to give you a reason to do that. And once the first version of the game came out, shot to the top of the list, I think it was like in 2012 or something like that, and stayed the #1 night overnight selling game until the system shut down in 2015. And all we ever did after that point was listen to the fans and kind of put what they were in. My thought originally was to make like kind of like a 3D Terraria that was about like exploring and fighting things, but we kind of just did what the fans did afterwards. So anyways, that's the kind of the story. I don't know where this started, but that was kind of the story about what inspired me to make CastleMiner Z's. There was like sort of like a set of decisions that came up to things, and just sort of watching about what was interested and what I was interested in, finding the intersections of that. Afterwards, there was a wave of open world survival games, which was kind of cool. Like there was, DayZ was one of them, and 7 Days to Die was another one. And these all had like CastleMiner Z elements in them. So I really thought that it was cool that I had kind of kicked off this genre of games, because we were really the first one. There was no other games like this at the time period. Aside from Minecraft, obviously. Somebody's saying that they abused the duplication glitch. Good for you. Another one is that there's another comment here that I wanted to address. Oh, they were talking about the comedy night game. There was a lot of like very interesting and bizarre games that we were making on the Xbox at the time. I actually know the guys who made that game. But one of them that I always thought that we made that was funny was Avatar Connection. let me see, was essentially like a dating game for the Xbox. It's harder and harder to find. I'm just Googling these old box covers. This is one that I always thought was kind of funny, was that it reminded me, it was a game that was sort of like the Love Connection on that old dating show, and you got to be on the show, and there was like a host that was an NPC, and there was a real the people in the audience were real, and the person on the couch was real, and there was like a person on a TV, and they were real, and you got to meet real people as they rotated through. And this is an example of like a goofy game that we were making that was kind of cool. It was really fun to make this set. I actually made this set myself, and it was fun to make this like little TV set. I like the way it came together. It didn't sell particularly well, but it was like a cute little experience. The joke I always had was that, you were paying $1 to realize that nobody was interested in you, because typically that's what would happen. People are saying they love Codebase and CastleMiner Z back then. I think what was interesting about those time periods, though, we have a great relationship with that and the Fortress guy too, DJ Arcus. And it was interesting because the 3 games served like 3 different purposes. We weren't competitive with each other. We all talked behind the scenes. And if you didn't know it, Fortress Craft Phoenix was announced literally on the same day as CastleMiner Resurrection. It was totally coincidental. We announced with our products with an hour away from each other, and they're on Steam to wish list. But it was so weird that like both of us, it's like, the universe like aligning itself, that Fortress Craft announced their reboot like literally like an hour or 2 after we were Breathing Stars, and I haven't talked to that guy in years. So yeah, let me hit some of these questions. They're really good questions tonight. How does a man get into indie game development? I don't know if you're asking how I got into indie game development or how you should get into indie game development, but somebody gets into indie game development by making games. And all the time when people come to me and they ask me this advice about how do I get in the game industry or how do I do whatever, it's a really simple answer. Go make games. Like, do your art. I always say, follow your dreams without compromise. It's the most important thing in your life. Find the thing that you love to do and do it, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it or you shouldn't do it or you should do it in a different way. Follow your dreams without compromise. So if you want to make games, all the tools and the marketplaces and everything are available. You can go download Unity, make a game for free, and you can upload it to Steam. I think they charge you $100 the first time and then they give it back to you. But essentially, it doesn't cost you anything to do any of this stuff. There's so much information and tutorials online. If you want to make games, start by making games. And I can tell you, in the game industry, when I would interview people for jobs, that's what I would look for. Did you make a game? You're a game developer. Show me the games you made. I don't care where you went to school. I don't care how eloquent you could talk. A lot of people in the game industry are weird. I love weird people. So if you're a game developer, show me the games you made. And there's so many people that I interviewed. That's how I got my first job in the game industry. Like, I had been making games on my own for a long time. And I went right out of college at like 21 years old and went to game companies. And I was like, here's I was this DVD at the time period of games that I've made. You can look at them. And they were like, come on, you're one of us. That's it. It was such a straightforward thing. Like, make the things that you like. And people in the game industry are weird, right? Like, they're, in general, it's some of the weirdest and most interesting people I meet. And I always tell people, like, if you're different for some reason, like, you really need to embrace that. However you want to define that, if you're different in a way, it's like having a tiger on a leash. It's difficult because that tiger will bite you every once in a while, but you don't want to not have a tiger right? Like, you don't want to not have a tiger. Having a tiger on a leash is cool. So if you're weird or you're different or whatever, it's like, it's having a, you got to think of it like having a tiger on a leash and embrace that in the best way possible. And the people in the game industry are super weird. I'm super weird. Like, it's a bunch of weird people. Let me try to catch up with some of the things here as I've been rambling on. Can every biome have their own unique structure? Yeah, that's one of the things we're looking at. And one of the things that you can do is go to our website and CastleMinerZ.com, and you can submit structures for us that we can potentially put in the game. So a lot of love here. I appreciate all the love. I don't do a good job of calling out the really good comments. I appreciate every one of them. Like, it's the reason why we do this. It's really great to hear everybody. People are saying that a lot of people say that this was a very special memory for them, and you don't realize like how important that is for me to hear that the things that I did made an impact on people when they were young. Like, it's a feeling that's like so important that it's hard to even describe. And on the flip side of it, like, you guys helped me out a lot. You've helped me through really difficult periods of time in my life in ways that you probably don't even realize. We all talk about this on the team. We have so much gratitude for the fans because you allowed us to do things that we wanted to do. You allowed us to be artists and express our art in ways that we as an artist, the thing that you want to be able to do is to do your art and not have to do something else because, while you're doing your art. You don't want to have to be like an accountant in the daytime and then do your art in your spare time. You want to be able to do your art, and you guys allowed us to do that. You guys made it possible for do that. So everybody, that's on the team is unbelievably grateful for that. But the flip side of it is there's something unbelievably rewarding about knowing that you were able to influence this many people and give them positive memories that they, carried through life. Like, that is sort of a deep level of satisfaction that I don't think that you could get in any other way. The other thing too is I did not fit in the corporate world. Like, it was difficult for me. I'm a weird guy. I'm very opinionated. I'm like extremely ADHD. I can't focus on things that I'm not interested. Here I am. I'm 50 years old, and I'm wearing a Jack Skellington shirt. I'm just kind of driving around a Transformer Camaro. Like putting me in a big corporate environment is like torture to me. And the game industry, like the AAA game industry, is relatively abusive to work for. So that was kind of horrible too. I was struggling, and I was losing my job every 2 years and having to go to a new place. And, the stability and success that you gave me as an indie really, really changed my life. Like, it dramatically changed my life. Like, I went from working in jobs where, in the game industry, you want to make your art, but you only get to work on a little piece of a game. And then, you ultimately end up having to like work these ridiculous hours where you're working 7 days a week and sleeping under your desk. And usually your reward for that is getting fired, because after they ship the game, they don't need you anymore. So they just get rid of you. So your life is like this grind of doing things, and they burn you out. So what the game industry likes to do is get people that are like in their 20s that are really excited about this, and they work them until they won't do it anymore. And people just leave the industry, and new people come in. And the time where I was doing this, like in the early 2000s, was kind of like I don't know what it's like now because I haven't worked in the real game industry for a long time. I'm imagining it's actually not much different. But there was a famous letter that came out from an EA spouse, where the EA spouse was saying that, my husband essentially like lives at work. It's the most abusive, situation ever. I never see him. He never sees our kids. And what the part of it that they never even I don't even think they talked about is that like then you do that for 2 years and you get fired and you go try to find a job, but the game industry is relatively small, so you have to move across the country. You move to a new place, you work for a couple of years, and you get fired again. You move somewhere else. And the dream that every game developer has is like making their own game and being able to escape that. It's like being able to escape like slavery. So, like, I'm so grateful that I got to live the dream of a game developer, which is to make my own game and have people love it, and not only just love it and remember it, because that actually happens a lot of times, but got it to be financially successful enough where I could escape that grind. And it worried me because I really thought like the first time I got laid off, I was working at Microsoft in the Microsoft Game Studios in the early 2000s, and I got laid off. And like at Microsoft, you have the option to go somewhere else, but I couldn't imagine myself being like a programmer on Excel or something like that. It would have been like torture to me. So like I just appreciate it so much. By the way, thank you for the donation, Gabe. I appreciate that. Yeah, somebody's saying here resonates so hard. 10 years in tech, and I didn't fit in culturally, and didn't want to work the startup life, and put me in the hospital. I know so many people that ended up with extreme health. I know people who have died, I don't think if you haven't worked in tech, I don't think you understand it. It's kind of horrible. It's horrible for ways that you can't imagine. And I know that I said something about this in one of my earlier videos, and there was a lot of people that like worked in construction and things like that that came back and said like, haha, you don't know what it's like. There's first of all this belief that tech pays really, really well, and I don't know, maybe that's true outside of the game industry, but the game industry for like always paid less than to other tech jobs, dude. I never had like stock options that panned out in a startup. I never got royalties from a game company that panned out. So this idea that tech makes tons of money is definitely not always true. That a construction job is hard. I've had a couple physical jobs in my life, but I've never had a really, really demanding physical job. And I can imagine that is extraordinarily difficult to do. And it's also difficult because it's uninspiring, except, I don't know, like maybe if you're in a trade, like where you're welding or something, I can imagine really taking pride in doing that. I actually know game developers that have left and become like electricians and things like that because it was a better job to be an electrician than it was to be a game developer. But the tech industry is horrible in ways that people don't realize. It's mentally exhausting, and it's like emotionally exhausting because you're stuck in front of a computer doing something you don't want to do for like hours and hours and hours on end, and it like never works out. And there's a lot of backstabbing and people sabotaging you. It's really, I had somebody reach out to me recently that talked about working at a big tech company and was talking about how it was such an emotionally damaging experience. And I think for a lot of people who haven't done it, they think it's ridiculous. I have a story about my ex-wife that, like she was always telling me, why can't you just, like you have your cushy game developer job. Why can't you, just be okay with it? And then she got a job in tech. And like, I remember the first couple weeks, like her just coming home crying in the middle of the night because that was when she was getting home from work at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and we would see each other for an hour, and she was was like, this is horrible and I'm sorry because like this is so bad. Like she had a horrible boss and she was working long hours, and it was like she was going through all this stuff. It's hard to describe. Like it's really, if somebody could describe to me why like a construction job was horrible, I would really understand that. I think it's easy to understand that. It's a little bit more difficult to understand why a job as a tech worker is difficult to me. Like, but having done it a long time and done it in big companies and little companies, because there's different problems that you run into in big companies and little companies. There is like, I get it. Like it's like I've lived it, and it's horrible. I still have nightmares. I have recurrent nightmares regularly about my time spent at like Microsoft. And they're funny to me now because they're kind of weird. They're sort of like those dreams that you have about high school where, like you're not prepared for a test or something. But there's a series of them that I had, and I started having different ones when I started to be an indie game developer. Like one of the nightmares I have is that I'm at a big tech company and I don't know what my job is. And I've been there long enough where I'm afraid to ask anybody. So every day I'm getting more and more anxiety because I've been there longer and longer and longer, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do at the company. And I'm afraid to, it's been so long now that I'm afraid to ask people, and I'm afraid that that it's going, that someone's going to find out. And another one that I have a lot is where I'm in a game company and I'm trying to get something done and they won't let me do it. So I'm going in there and they're like, oh, go make the blah, 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 blah part of the game. And I'm like, hey, why don't we make this and do it like this and do it like this? And they're like, no, like go off and make it the hard way. And like having been an indie where I have the authority to make good decisions about what should or shouldn't be made in games, like this is like so like painful for me to go through. And it's funny because people have this story about game companies, especially if they were an indie. I know that John talked about this in one of his previous jobs, and he told me this story where once he started making games as an indie, he would go into a game company and they would say like, this is what we're doing, and he would be like, that doesn't make any sense. Like if you're making this type of game, you shouldn't make this type of engine, and you should pick this technology. And they're like, shut up, get in your office and just do what we tell you to do. So anyways, enough ranting about that. Yeah, somebody's saying here, a lot of people are telling their nightmare stories about the tech industry, and I feel you, man. It's not, there's definitely much harder jobs and people that have things way harder in the world. Like it's a relatively easy, cushy job, but it's still definitely a hard thing to do. And I would have such a I can't imagine doing this on a product that was not artistic and interesting. I think that would be, it's like almost like torture. Like to me, I guess with, just extreme ADHD, I think that would be torturous, is to like work on something that you hated and you weren't interested in. Somebody's asking a question here. I've told this story of why, how did I get into game development? And this is an interesting story. I feel like this is why I was put on the earth. And I know that sounds really, really weird and a little bit egotistical, but I feel like this is why I was put here, and I'm not allowed to do anything else. And I've tried. I've tried several times, but the universe won't let me do it. So my story is that I was born in the 1970s. I'm 50 years old. I was born in 1975. And my dad was an electrical engineer, and he was very involved in computers, even though it was very early in the 1980s. He taught me how to program at 5 years old, and I started making games immediately after that. I was sort of like a prodigy in that sense. And I made a bunch of games and actually released them when I was younger, at least by 1990 or so. I had done that. And I was very fortunate. I was fortunate to grow up in a time period where I could do this. In that time period, to even have access to computers, because I think a lot of people didn't have access to computers until like the 1990s. So it was almost like 20 years. I had been programming computers for 20 years before people ever saw their first computer. And my dad had engineer friends that were involved in the game industry, so it's not that they had a direct influence on me, but the fact that my parents were like exposed to the game industry at an early time and very accepting. So they understood that games were like a cool thing and they were important. They both played games, even though it's weird for the 1980s for my parents who were much older than me to play games. My mom took me to arcades, like physical arcades every weekend. And my dad played games through my whole life, and he was one of our biggest fans. Like, he played all of my games for thousands of hours. So they were very, very supportive of that through my whole career. So I just kept doing it. Like, so I've never really done anything else. I started as a little kid. I started making games, and I just never stopped. And when I got out of college was the first point where I thought, I'm tired of this. I got out of college in 1998, and I had a computer science degree, and I thought, this is like, no, like, I don't want to do this anymore. I kept saying at that point I was going to move to Hollywood. I was going to try to be an actor, and if that didn't work out, I would fall back on game developments. But I went out and did some interviews, and because I had so much experience making games by this point in my life, the game industry was like, oh my God, like, we need to have you. And I had interviewed at lots of different types of companies. I interviewed at financial companies and medical things. And there was one job, I remember this, and this is good life, me as an old 50-year-old giving you this life advice. I was getting frustrated doing interviews, and I worked for a job. I interviewed for a company that made phone systems that, you know, it's like, press 1 to do this, press 2 to do this, you know, and God, this is bringing back memories because it's a really weird story. I had gotten to this point where I was like, I got to just get a job. Like, I was out of college for a while, and I got to get a job. And I was just like, I'm just going to take the next thing that I get. And I went to this company, and it was the most boring job ever. Like, programming these phone systems. Press 1 if you're speaking English, press 2 if you're whatever, and you would program these systems for other companies. And I remember they brought me into this little room, and there was like a closet, and they opened up the closet, and there was a dude in there programming, like literally in a closet. And they were like, yeah, you and him will be doing the same job. And I remember walking out and thinking, like, oh, I'm just going to take this. And they put me in a boardroom for some reason. I guess they were going to make a decision about me. And it was in this office that had all these windows and this huge, like, CastleMiner Z-style storm. It was a sunny day in the summer, rolled in and rolled through the office at this, like, these dark clouds. And it was like this bad omen for me. And I remember I went home and I talked to my father, and I said, you know, I'm just going to take the job. You know, I just need to get a job. I'm just going to take this. Because I think they offered me the job, like, right there, probably because nobody wanted it. And my dad was like, don't do it. He's like, don't take a job that you hate. You have to go there every day. It becomes your whole life. Like, don't take a job that you hate. And I turned the job down, and the next job offer I got was from FOSSA Interactive in Chicago, which was a really cool. I was so aware of the company. The company made all the BattleTech stuff. I had played with their stuff when I was younger, and I remember the feeling that was a difference is that I walked into the BattleTech offices, the FOSSA Interactive offices, and there was like a huge, like 8-foot tall BattleTech robot in their office, and I thought, I had this feeling in my heart, like, this is where I belong, like, this is where I need to be. And that company loved me. I came in with my demo, and they were like, obviously you should be here. You're a game developer. This is where you need to be. You know, come join us. And I took the job at FOSSA Interactive, and within like a month of taking the job, Microsoft came in and bought the company and moved me out to Seattle, which I would never have gone and done by myself. But my point about this is that a lot of times your heart will tell you what's right for you in your life, and you shouldn't try to ignore it. You shouldn't try to ignore it for practical reasons. You'll never regret anything more than giving up your dreams. And I say this over and over again, is follow your dreams unapologetically without compromise. Follow your dreams without compromise. And it's sometimes not an easy path. There's been a lot of hard things, but it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it versus, you know, ending up in, you know, some job that you hate and, you know, coming home and like trying to tune out, you know, having a drink and watching Netflix while you're tuning out of your life. You know, like you don't ignore your heart. Somebody's saying here that is a Roblox game respected in terms of expressing game desires. Yeah, I would totally do like, especially Roblox. My daughter is working on a Roblox game right now. Roblox games are making money, It's really not about like the technical weight of what you're doing. It's more about, are you a person that makes things? This is a really important concept, is that what I've noticed in the world at this point in my life is that the world is kind of divided into two types of people. People that make things and people that don't. And if I was going to hire you as a game developer, I would like to know you're a person that makes things, that you have an intrinsic motivation that wakes up and compels you to make cool stuff. So I don't really care if that's like a game that is like a super technically like C++ super hard thing to do, or it's just a cute little thing in Roblox. As long as that if it's creative and cool, that's even better, right? Like that's the person I want. You can train somebody to be a programmer. It's not actually that hard to do. You cannot train talent. Talent is something that is like inherently born to you. So if you can demonstrate that you have talent over just the ability to program like a machine, like that's a win. That's such an obvious thing for me. And I've over the years have hired so many odd people that I know that the rest of the world has passed by because I saw something brilliant and talented inside. I'm getting a little choked up now because there was a really good friend of mine that died a year or two ago. He was a really great game developer. And I remember when I met him the first time, he couldn't sign his name. Like he was a weird guy. Like he was like, I asked him to sign like an NDA and he said like, I don't have a signature. And I was like, okay, dude, like that's interesting, right? Like it's interesting. And you'll meet these people that are like, maybe they're autistic or they're on the spectrum or whatever, and they seem a little bit weird to people, like conventional people. But I've worked with so many of those people that were just unbelievably brilliant, and they're like gems to me. Like these people are like, you see it immediately. They're like, there's something special about you, and this is so embarrassing. There's something special about you, and you know, like it should be. Like somebody should let this shine. And I think that a lot of the world passes those people by, like people that are like talented. Like I knew a guy that used to program in like a helmet and gauntlets, but did like amazing things, right? Things that nobody else in the world could do. And there's always that guy on a game developer team, this guy that like is so weird, it's bizarre, but he can do something that maybe like 3 people in the entire world could do. So if you were looking for a place to be accepted, the game industry is a great place to do it, but just don't let them abuse you. And better off, if you could make this work on your own, do it. I always say this, I used to give talks in front of colleges, that if don't let anybody put you on a shelf. Pursue your dreams without compromise. And you live in a world now where you can just make things, put it on Steam, and make $1 million, and you never have to talk to anybody else in your life about anything. I tell this to my daughter, is a talented engineer. I have 2 daughters. One of them's a talented engineer, and one's a very talented artist. They would make a great game company together. But my older daughter is making Roblox games now. But like, you can make a Roblox game like and make millions of dollars. And I was telling her like, go make your Roblox game, and you don't have to worry about anything anymore. Like you're done. Like you can go and make games forever. Like make your Roblox game. And I mean, now I'm asking her every week, like, how is your Roblox game coming along? But make your Roblox game and don't worry about the world. Like there's there's this sort of like path that the world pushes you down. And the reality is that you don't have to go down it. Like you can go your own place. In fact, you'll do better if you go in your own place. Let me hit some of the questions here. That was like a little bit of a rough ride. So let me ask these questions here. So there's a lot of people talking here about the Navy. Thank you for your service. I really appreciate the military. I think that's a great thing, and I appreciate your service. Yeah, somebody's asking about my daughter and her into her game. Somebody's asking I didn't convince her to do anything. I actually didn't want to push my daughter into doing this because I always had this feeling that I was kind of pushed in at a very young age, and I felt for a long time that I really doubted if I should be doing this, especially in the last 5 or 6 years. I stopped developing games for about 6 or 7 years, and I really doubted. I had this feeling of like, I don't want to do this anymore, and maybe I should have gone in a different path in the, initially, and maybe if I wasn't pushed down that path, I wouldn't do it. I'm realizing now that this is kind of who I am, and the universe isn't going to let me do anything else. So this is what I'm doing. But I didn't push her at all. She found her own thing, and I think there's some level of genetics that are going on there. She's probably built to be a game developer. It's funny they say is that that people that are programmers were kind of like the same type of person, and before there were computers, they were just sort of like unhappy accountants. It's cool. I feel very fortunate that I live in this time period where I got to see all this stuff happen, and I got to be who I am, and it worked. Is CastleMiner Resurrection going to be on Xbox down the line? I hope. People are talking about their stories about doing game development. Somebody here is talking about going through their battles with anxiety. I've had a lifetime battle with anxiety, that debilitating, really crippling anxiety. This is one of the reasons I work out so much now. It was a lifetime of trying to understand how to manage anxiety without taking any medication. So I definitely have an appreciation for that, and I have some very, very difficult stories about very hard times that I've went through my life dealing with extreme anxiety. This is not where I thought this stream was going to go. Like, I was going to merge code here, but this is fun. So let's just keep going with this. Somebody's asking here. Sorry, I'm not paying much attention to TikTok. I'm really sorry about this because there's probably actually a lot of people on TikTok. Whoa. Okay. We got a lot of stuff here. I'm gonna try to hit as many questions as you can. Somebody's asking if there is a Discord server. Yes, if you go to CastleMinerZ.com, you can find the link to our Discord server, and you find me on Discord, and I'll give you the best advice that I can. But I only have so much. Do I have a release date? Let's go through the CastleMiner questions. Hopefully by the end of this year. Is this pre-recorded? No, it is not. I am completely live. I'm sorry. I have to look at the TikTok questions and the rest of the streams. We're also simultaneously streaming on 4 or 5 different places. So I have to look at these things separately. And I've been not being good. As I was rambling about things, I haven't been good about going through these things. In fact, I'm going to go through some of these questions here to make sure I haven't missed too much. Somebody's asking, we went through this story, somebody's asking, they keep popping up on my For You page, can you ask me what encouraged you to dev? I kind of went through that story just a little while ago. I've been developing games since I was 5 years old, so I don't feel like I was encouraged to go into development. I think that I had a very supportive upbringing where people understood the value of that at a time period where most people didn't even know what a computer was, and I just feel very lucky to do that. Somebody's saying they have a lot of good memories with the game. I appreciate that. Like, that means a lot to us. CastleMiner Z is making a return. If you go to CastleMinerZ.com, you can see that. This is an interesting question. Somebody's asking me, what was the dream company when you started out that you wanted to work for? I didn't have one. I wanted to have my own game company. I think that was the dream. definitely was a dream from a very early age that I was making games as a little kid, and I wanted to own a dream puppet. It's funny. One of my favorite movies is I was actually going to watch it tonight. Is Tron, the original Tron movie, and the story of the guy. And if you've ever seen the 1980, first of all, it's a great movie. I understand that people are probably a little bit too young to know this, but the original Tron movie is a great movie. And it's partly because it's a weird fantasy. I saw this movie at 5 years old, and it's a weird fantasy. So in the game, the guy works for like a big tech company, and he makes a game for the company, and he gets fired because somebody backstabs him, basically. And the guy that fires him becomes the CEO. The guy that backstabs him becomes the CEO of the company, and he becomes kind of like an indie hacker guy. And eventually he like infiltrates into the computer and finds the evidence, and they give him the job as the CEO of the company. But it's like this whole idea of being this independent game developer. And the thing, he runs an arcade, and I actually have a really good friend that runs the biggest arcade in the world in Chicago, and I always joke that he's that guy, and he's trying to make a game. He's been making a game for a long time too. But first of all, it was like very early in the game industry, so there wasn't like these big companies that were like EA and stuff was barely a thing at that point. So there wasn't like a game that a company that I really wanted to work for. But before I went to college, I was working with my friend, actually the friend that in Chicago that makes the arcade. We were working on a fighting game like Mortal Kombat. And my whole thing was that I wanted to make my own games. The interesting thing, I think around the 90s, I was playing a lot of Mortal Kombat, and I think the idea of working for Midway Games was interesting, the company that made Mortal Kombat. And I've actually had chances to work there, and I have turned them down. But it was much more rewarding to work for the Mortal Kombat guys in their own company than it would have been to work for Midway Games. And I guess that was kind of a dream of mine, because the Mortal Kombat guys were from Chicago, where I grew up, and they were I thought they were super cool guys. Like the stories about them making the original Mortal Kombat were cool. They just found friends that had martial arts experience, and they set up lights in an office, and they did things. I have a really funny story about that, actually. Is one of the first games that I made was the first big games that I made, like real games, was this game called Travelers, which you could see if you go to, you know what, like let's kick this open. It's on our YouTube channel. Again, this is not where, let me see if I could find the video on our YouTube channel, and I'll just play a little bit. Watch me get like content ID'd for playing my own video on the stream. So I made this video game in 1994. How do I get the link open? Here we go. I'm going to turn the sound down on this. Oops, I can't see the screen. I made this video game in 1994, and it was like this Mortal Kombat, this is videos of us, but it was like this Mortal Kombat style game that I made in my basement in 1994. And my friend saw this, and actually it was the girl I was dating at the time. She knew a guy who was making a similar game, and they needed a developer, and he started off making, it was Galloping Ghost Arcades. It was the game Dark Presence that they're still working on. There's actually a Netflix documentary being made about it. But this was one of the first games that I made, and it was definitely inspired by Mortal Kombat. And I made this game, and I got together with the Dark Presence guy, and let me see if I can find a video of that. And we spent most of our it's ridiculous. I hope I don't get in trouble for this, but this is the documentary they're making about him. There's a Netflix documentary that's coming out on him, and this is my friend. He owns Galloping Ghost. This is one of the actors in the game. But we had several studios. We spent years renting out old buildings and filming green screening in front of studios. And we were getting our production to be better. There's actually a shot of me in here somewhere. Let's see if I could find the original shot. There's somewhere in this trailer, there's actually a shot of me at 19 years old doing this with these guys. But anyways, we spent years. I remember I was in all these places where we filmed these studios, and I was always setting this up and doing the technical stuff inside of those. And we had spent our camera equipment got better and better and better, and we were doing all this stuff. And then finally, when I worked for John Tobias, the creator of Mortal Kombat, I said, like, how did you do this stuff? Because every time we were doing it, we were like, what did the Mortal Kombat guys did? They probably had really great equipment, and we're just, dealing with this. Like, we would rent an old building in the city. We would put up green screens. We'd sleep in there. We would spend like a month. I remember a lot of these places were like really cold, and it was winter in Chicago. And we would sleep in these buildings, and we would film, and we would do tests, and we would build out the game. And we did this, and I spent several years with them doing this. And I met John Tobias, and I was like, we always recorded wondering what you guys did. And he's like, what are you talking about? We had like desk lamps and an office. Like we didn't have a green screen. We just like would get in an office and set up some desk lamps and film stuff. And that's how we made Mortal Kombat. And I was like, wow, we were like so far ahead of you guys. It was funny. Anyways, let me hit some of the questions here. I'm gonna make sure I'm not neglecting TikTok. Man, it's funny. This is the middle of the night. This is not what I imagined this stream being, and there's like a lot of people on this stream. So, I lost you, TikTok. Let's see. Did I close? Oh, here we go. The guy's got close this out. Most Fortune 500. Are you the person behind CastleMiner Z? Yes, I am. The Galloping Ghost. People are familiar with the Galloping Ghost. If you're ever in Chicago, it's a cool place to go. It's the biggest arcade in the world. He's been a friend of mine since I was 19 years old, since like the 1990s. And
I'd say it's his muse.
If you're ever in Chicago, it's an amazing, and you're into games, it's an amazing experience. He's got thousands of games. It's like a whole city block. It's absolutely amazing. Somebody's asking if I still talk at colleges. There's a SWE club at my school. I would love to speak at your school as long as it depends. I live in the Seattle area, so I guess there's like a logistics issue but I would be definitely willing to hit me up. Go to CastleMinerZ.com. Find me on Discord. And if you're interested in that, I love talking to people. But did you work at Blizzard for 7 years? No, I think it's funny. Everybody's been drawing analogies lately with pirate software, which probably not a good thing because everybody seems mad at pirate software right now. But no, I did not work at Blizzard. I worked at MGS for a bunch of things, but it's a joke. I worked at Blizzard for seven years. Not trying to throw any shade on pirate software right now. A lot of people asking game questions. Are we going to do character customization? Probably won't launch with us. Are we going to release on consoles? If they let us. Release date is going to be hopefully close to the end of the year. I'm getting a text message in the middle of the night here. Let me hit some of the questions here on the other platforms. Okay. Somebody said they tuned into the stream and got hit immediately with motivation to try to continue making your platform. Good. You should continue making your platform game. Like, this is the most important thing you do. Like, never compromise your dreams. Thank you so much for the donation. I'm sorry if I missed this a while back. Really appreciate it. These donations really help. Video game controller dancing goofily under the word woot. Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to see that this is probably I don't think people are. There's probably a describing an icon to me. I was in high school when this game came out. That's cool. It's cool that people were able to play this. With all the game engines you have worked with, do you believe that Unreal Engine is the best? This is a good question. I'm trying to be careful about how I answer this because this seems to be a controversial topic for some reason, which surprises me. Yeah, I guess so. But I also feel like I'm not qualified to say it yet because I haven't finished the game. I think when the game is over with, like a lot of things in life, like the first half of it seem really good, and then when you get to the second half, like things aren't, like that's when you start running into problems. So I don't feel qualified to say that, but so far I like it way better than any of the other ones. I kind of hate them all, and I said this in a stream, and people were surprised by that. Me and John have spent years making games for AAA game companies. So when we look at an engine, we are like, oh God, I wouldn't have done it like this, or why did they do this or that? And what I found is that, and this is kind of like, I guess, like a broad statement, but I've sort of found that the people working on the game engines typically haven't spent a long time making games. I think it should almost be like a requirement. If you're going to work on a game engine, you should have at least released a couple games, because you don't really understand the problems that occur at different points in game development. And the one thing that our team really understands well is like production. Like we know what we've made cumulatively. We've probably made 1,000 games together. We made, just in Digital DNA, we made 20 different games, that went to market that real people played, not mentioning the ones that got canceled or whatever, talking about our, early passion projects and our learning projects and whatever. It's just like thousands of games. So it's like, and they're real games that real people have played. Like, I don't like, I have this whole thing that I only listen to people who have done things successfully. Like, I don't want to hear noise from people that haven't done things, so when people say like, oh, this should be like this or that, even people that work professionally in the industry, because I think that a lot of people that in the professional AAA game industry or any of them have not really made a game. Like, they've worked on like a part of the game and other people have done things, and then somebody else has done the marketing or whatever. It's like until you've actually like been through the process, like, I don't want to hear how things are supposed to be done. And the feeling I kind of get with the game engines is that especially for Unity, was that the people I encountered in the Unity space were like not people who had made games. And I know that's a broad statement, because I'm sure that there's a lot of like unbelievably talented people at Unity, but it kind of reflected in their engine, because the issues that I had with Unity was that they would have one feature and another feature, but if you tried to use those features together, they didn't work. So if you could have, they had a cool lighting system and they had the ability to make cool trees, but if you, I'm just talking, this isn't a specific thing, this is kind of like an abstract thing, but if you tried to use the lighting system on the cool trees, they didn't work together. And if you search for me on the Unity forums, you'll find all of these rants that I have about like, hey, I'm trying to like do this. I remember there was one specifically with animation where I was trying to like do ragdolling and something at the same time, and it wasn't working. And finally, the Unity guy just conceded, like, "Oh yeah, that doesn't work." One of the things that we ran into doing Death Toll was that you could not do physics and networking together. There was a special set of APIs that you needed to do networking and physics together, and they just didn't expose it to you. So if you had a game where you could do physics in a single player game and you could do networking, but if you had a game that did physics and networking, you already had problems. There was like the standard way to solve that problem was not available to you inside of Unity. and when it's somebody else's engine, you don't have the ability to fix that. Like, you don't have the ability to be like, oh, let's just throw in this feature to do that. So John and I typically hate this, right? Because it's like, God, why did you not, why would you think that you didn't need this feature? Like, have you ever made a game, you're giving people networking, you're giving people physics. Do you not think that somebody is going to make a networked physics game? And you don't have an answer for that. And what John would always say, which I think is a great quote, is that it's because these products are not used to make games. They're used to sell engines. So they make little demos of one-off. They'll make a physics demo and a networking demo. And you're like, okay, let's use the engine. And then when you try to make your physics networking game, you can't do it. You can't put all the pieces together. The one thing that I've found so far about Unreal Engine, and John and I have agreed with this, is that Unreal Engine feels like it's been made by game developers who were making a game. This is how our engine was made. The digital DNA engine that we made all of our games, CastleMiner Z, is that it got built out as we were building games. So everything in the engine was super functional and worked really good. And every engine sort of has a philosophy about what they're trying to do with the engine. And ours was to make an engine that made it really easy for us to make games, that we could make games in quickly. And that seems intuitive, but that's not the directive of all the different engines. I actually don't think that's the directive for Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine is to make, it seems like it's to make performant games, like big games, like AAA games that run really well, seems to be the architectural design for Unreal. And there's a bunch of good decisions that they've made in there. Unity's thing seems to be to make mobile games, and make cross-platform mobile games very easy to make it accessible to make simple games. So if you're going to make like an Angry Birds game and you want it to be on like every different, the iPad and the phone and, whatever, Unity is like a really good choice for that because it makes making that type of game easy and it makes going across the platforms easy. If you're going to make like a big open world shooter game, it's a bad choice. And I can tell you that personally because we did make a giant open world shooter game and it was an absolute nightmare to make in Unity. We were cursing it all the way through the process. I think a lot of this comes from the fact that Unreal Engine was used to make Fortnite. And Fortnite sort of had an infinite budget. So Fortnite was probably driving a lot of the design decisions. So you can see a lot of things in Unreal Engine where like somebody had a problem and they had to solve it. So they made a solution to the problem. So it's better that they came up with the problem and solved it than me making my open world shooter and coming up with the problem myself and then begging Unity to fix the problem on our behalf, which is what we ran into several places with Unity. So when I look at Unreal Engine, I think, yeah, this is the way that I would put it together. The only thing I wished was a little bit different in Unreal Engine is I wish that Unreal Engine had like C# support inside of it. I think that would be like the total clinch for that. Unreal Engine has two ways to program it. One of them is C++, which is like unnecessarily difficult. That's not fair. It's difficult if you need the performance of C++. And then they have Blueprint, which is like a visual programming language that's meant to make it accessible. It's almost as if they were, I think this is actually the history of Unreal Engine, is that you were programming it in C++, but they needed an answer for people who like weren't hardcore game developers. So they went way in the other direction and they made this visual scripting language that isn't very performant and isn't very easy to program. Like easy in the sense that when things get complicated, you end up with these big twisted, like visual things. What they need is sort of like some intermediate scripting language that's in between the two of them. But this is all just my opinions. Will there be lore and Easter eggs? Probably. There'll probably be. We are releasing first and then onto the console. Yes, a lot of these are being answered by the community. Oh, I'm missing the donations. Sorry about this. Thank you so much for the donations. Thank you for making CastleMiner Z. It's a good game. Good luck with the Resurrections. I had dreams about it for real. That's cool. Like we're jiggling the universe and vibrating it. I like the vibes. That's great. And somebody here, this is really great. I hope you know how many childhood memories you've made for kids growing up in the 360 era. I think that is like I've said this over and over again. Like, this is the reason why you do all of this. Okay, are you actually remaking CastleMiner Z? Yeah. Did I work for Blizzard for 7 years? No, I did not. But I think there's somebody else that did. When is this going to drop? Near the end of the year. This is really cool. I'm going to have to actually... It's 2 in the morning where I am, and I'm going to look through this merge a little bit before I go, and then I'm going to drop off the stream here. There's a lot of love in the streams. I appreciate that. Let's go back to see how our computer did on the merge, or see if it's even done yet, because it might not be done. First of all, I'm going to figure out if it's... This is how I tell if the window becomes responsive. Oh, I'm not even here. If the window becomes responsive, it's done, and the merge is actually not going. Grok is actually very, very slow. It's good for programming, but it's very, very slow. And it's getting late, and I think that this is not the type of work I should be doing in the middle of the night. There is creative work I find is better in the middle of the night, and like really detail-oriented work I do better in the daytime. It's replaced a bunch of constants, even though it's not supposed to. That's going to be a difficult thing to look into. And this needs to run for longer. Man, there's a lot of change to the player code. These are just walk speeds. Replaced a delegate out of there. That actually might... It's going to be hard to realize if that was actually a legitimate change or not. I'll have to go back and visit the differences. I'm actually so curious about this. It's so interesting to me to see what the community actually did here. It's interesting. This looks like they introduced another class for loading fonts. This is actually going to be a considerable amount of work. This is a critical change, that the host can't get kicked from their own games. That should have been there for a long time. I feel like on some level I maybe shouldn't be doing this because I'm exposing vulnerabilities with the game. Remove some comments. Yeah. This is a making sure the update loop is supposed to be running to change the time of day. These are all really good bug fixes. These are if I had a game developer working for me and they were fixing this stuff, I'd be super happy with them. So yes, I think before I go, I'm going to just bring up the CastleMiner Z website, CastleMinerZ.com. Let me drop this in the chats here, and I appreciate everybody dropping down this late at night. This stream turned into like story time instead of a stream emerging code, but it's probably more interesting. I'm going to make really quick to see if I can address any of these TikTok questions. Hello, TikTok. How much? This is a good question. How much money would we need to make in order for the new gen CastleMiner Z to be profitable? It's really kind of a difficult thing to calculate because everybody is working for free right now. So, like, not for free, but like we're all working for royalties. We only are going to make money if the game makes money. So, I mean, one way to look at it is that all of these guys are really talented guys. They could be working on other things at other jobs right now. So, you know, what are they giving up to work for this? Everybody is sort of taking a big risk. So I guess one of them would be to look at what they what they're giving up and risking to do this. We need you guys to to phone it in for us. Like, we need you guys to show up and make this worth it. So, but you always have. So I have faith in you, and I appreciate it. Am I developing by myself? No, there's 4 of us. Somebody say they loved the game as a kid. I appreciate all the love. A lot of love here. I appreciate that. I wish I could call out every single love comment here. It's really meaningful for me. Any new features so far? Yeah, there's some new stuff. What platforms? We're gonna go to PC first, and then to the consoles. One of the things I was saying in the stream earlier today was that people are upset because the game is coming out on PC first in console, and I think it came out the opposite way years ago. And I was thinking about this, and it's really funny, is that back when we were doing the Xbox thing, you could ship to the Xbox without any restrictions, but going to Steam was very, very difficult. So shipping on the PC was hard, and the Xbox was easy. So we came out on the Xbox first, and then we went on to Steam. But nowadays it's the exact opposite. You can go to Steam very, very easy, and the Xbox is really, really hard. So it's flipped around, and because of that, we're releasing in the opposite way. How many sales did the first game get? I don't actually know that number, like offhand. I wish I did. But it's in the millions. It is. And I know it's really easy to like extrapolate that and to think, well, you made sold millions of games, and this is like how much the money. But the first thing is that the platform takes 30% of that, like, right off the bat, and then you pay taxes on that, which is like almost half. And then a lot of people work for royalties, so I wrote very, very large checks to the people that were working for me. And then I had an ex-wife that wiped me out. So so I think that besides I think that's probably the thing that people are extrapolating, that it's I'm probably not in the place where everybody is imagining where I am. But anyways, what's the updated wish list number? It's 32,000 is what we're at right now, which I appreciate that. We want to be at 100,000 when we ship. So 32,000 is where it is right now. And if you go to Steam wishlist, please wishlist the game. Most important thing to do right now. So I appreciate everybody showing up. It's like almost 2 o'clock here. I didn't really expect this to go this way, but it was cool. This is actually one of the cooler streams I think that we did. I think that the highlights of this stream are going to be better than the rest of them. I appreciate it. Wishlist the game. We'll do another stream. Definitely have another dev stream next week. I might do another stream with this code merge. I'm going to let it run through the night, and then I'm going to start picking through it tomorrow. This is a little bit more complicated than I thought it was going to be, but appreciate it. I'm going to dip out with the trailer here just because I think there's a lot of people, especially on TikTok, that haven't seen the game. And look us up, CastleMinerZ.com, wishlist it.